In today's lesson, we will be covering absolute value as distance. So the term absolute value, what exactly does it mean? Well, when we talk about absolute value, what we're really talking about is we're talking about how far away is a number, or what's the distance of that number away from zero. It's very easy to explain if we take a look at a number line, so let's go ahead and do that. So before we begin, we need to talk about just the value of negative numbers. When we have a negative number, when they become greater, there is less value. So -5 is actually smaller or has a less value than -1. Well, why is that? Well, say that I owed John $5. Well, if I owe John $5, I'm actually -$5 in my bank account. Question becomes, would I rather owe John $1? Yeah, I would much rather owe John $1. I'm much closer to breaking even and then even having some money in my own pocket. But if I was -$5, I have to pay him $5 bills before I break even or before I can start saying that I can save some money. And just to contrast this with positive numbers do the opposite of this. As they increase, so does their value. So if I was at 5 on this number line, it has a greater value than 1. So let's go ahead and define what the word absolute value really means. It's the magnitude of a number regardless of its sign. And when we talk about its sign, it's either a positive number or a negative number. So we are going to start with a point on -5. Now, I want to find the absolute value of -5. If I were to show you how to write the absolute value of -5, that's what I was trying to find, this is how I would do it. I have these two vertical lines or bars on either side of the value that I have on my number line. And the reason that we are going to call this absolute value as distance is an absolute value really asks for you to define how far away is this number from zero. Since our point is at -5, we can just go ahead and count until we get to 0. Well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 away from 0. So the absolute value of -5 is equal to 5. The magnitude of this number is 5. Now, just to compare and contrast, let's go ahead and find the absolute value of 5. If we had a point at 5, remember, absolute value means distance away from 0, or we can also refer to this as the magnitude of a number. So we would go backwards to get to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the absolute value of 5 is 5. And you can see the magnitude of both of these numbers is the same, but these numbers both have different values when we are not talking about absolute value. So absolute value is one of those things that once you have a good understanding of what it means conceptually, we have a very quick shortcut as to how you find the absolute value of a number. As you saw in our last example, -5 and 5 both have the same absolute value because their magnitude is the same. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the shortcut now that you potentially know what absolute value truly means. So here are a number of different examples. Remember, we are just talking about the magnitude of the number that is between the two bars, which is our absolute value sign, or how you write it down in symbols. So if we were to find the absolute value of 7, okay, it's just like finding the absolute value of 5. How far away is 7 from 0? 7. We found these two already, right? And they are equal to the same thing. Well, guess what? These numbers aren't really changing, right? If we were to continue this pattern, all right, we said the numbers aren't really changing. Well, guess what? -676. If I want to find the absolute value of that, well, regardless of sign, we're finding the magnitude of this number. it would be 676 away from 0, so that would be my correct answer. Its positive counterpart of just absolute value of 676, not negative 676, would give me the same result. It's just on the right side of the graph, or the right side of 0, whereas negative 676 would be 676 places to on the left side of 0. Same thing happens with fractions. The absolute value of negative 1/2 would be 1/2 because it is 1/2 away from 0. Same thing in the positive direction. 1/2, or the absolute value of 1/2, would just be 1/2. And that is the shortcut that I'm trying to teach you. If it has a negative value, really we're just writing the positive value. If the number is already positive, the absolute value of that number is just that number without our absolute value signs on the outside of it.